Thanks, Jessica. Welcome, everybody. I'm super excited to be hosting this webinar for you today. We have a great panel of experts, so let's just dive right in. Today, we're going to be talking about spreading awareness as our roles as asset managers. We get to hear from experts around the industry on their communication strategies and how they spread awareness about their property programs to the various levels in their organizations. So looking forward to this today. We're going to meet our experts here. Our first expert is from the federal industry. Her name is Angela Cooper. She's with the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs. She currently serves as the lead inventory management specialist with the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs. She possesses 33 years of federal service. Angela also serves as the national delegate for NPMA's Federal Center chapter and is the chair of the Federal Property Management SIG. So welcome, Angela.
Thank you. Hello, everyone.
Our next expert is from the university, and his name is Stan Dunn. He's from Stanford University. He's the director of the Property Management Office at Stanford. He's been with the department for 18 years and has been a member of NPMA for over 15 years and holds his CPPM certification. Dan is currently the treasurer of the California College and University chapter. As a graduate of UC Davis, Dan worked in a variety of management areas in the retail industry, including warehousing, logistics, operations, and procurement prior to joining Stanford. So welcome, Stan, sorry.
Thank you very much, Kim. One slight correction, I'm the associate director here. I am fortunate enough to have Yvonne Batcher as the director of our department here.
Oh, sorry, Stan, I missed the word associate in there.
No problem, but credit where it's due.
Don't want to take that away from Yvonne, I know her well. So for state and local, we have Patty Eldridge, and she is with the Texas Department of Public Safety in Asset Management. Since 2011, she's worked as the coordinator of the teams that conduct inventory verification for approximately 85,000 assets across the state. Prior to joining the AMO team, Patty worked in the inventory-related positions in retail, wholesale, and now capital and control. So welcome, Patty.
Thanks, everyone. Greetings from Texas.
In our medical industry, we have Norman Pugh-Newby. He's from Deloitte Advisory Services. He's currently the specialist master within the fixed asset management practice at Deloitte. Prior to Deloitte, Norman served as a career logistician within the United States Army, retiring as a lieutenant colonel after 20 years of service. In addition to his CPPA certification with NPMA, Norman holds additional certifications as a project management professional, a Lean Six Sigma Green Belt. Norman's education includes his Master's of Business Administration from Ohio University and a Master's of Science in Operations Research from the Naval Postgraduate School. Welcome, Norman.
Thank you, everyone.
And lastly, from the contractor industry, we have Dan Tully from Northrop Grumman. He's been working U.S. federal properties since 2000. He graduated with a bachelor's degree from St. John's University and received his Master's of Business Administration from the New York Institute of Technology. Dan's work experience ranges from conducting military intelligence operations in the U.S. Army Reserve, all the way to managing asset management teams at both BAE Systems and presently with Northrop Grumman. In addition to his CPPM certification with NPMA, Dan is a certified associate in project management from the Project Management Institute and a certified software asset manager from the International Association of Information Technology Asset Managers. That was a big word. Dan is also an active member on the Aerospace Industries Association, WAF, UID, RFID, e-Business Industry Group, the Government Furnished Property Working Group, and is the chair of the NGPC UID Special Interest Group and co-chair of NPMA UID SIG. So welcome, Dan.
Thank you.
So what we're going to do, folks, today is we're going to go through some panel questions, and I'm going to read the question for the panel and then let them all chime in for what they use in their organization. Our first question today to the panel is, do you communicate differently or have a different communication plan for the different levels within your organization? So let's start with Patty.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. I communicate differently with different levels. There's a communication strategy that I would use on my own team, but I work in law enforcement, so we've got multi-levels of chain of command. And depending on which branch I'm working with depends on how I would communicate and depending on my relationship with anybody within that division. So there are many, many, many different ways and different personality styles that I need to use to communicate what I need them to know, to understand about what I do.
Thanks, Patty. One of the other panelists, do you want to chime in?
This is Angela Cooper. I'll chime in. Yes, we have different strategies here at Department of Veterans Affairs as well. Dealing with senior management, we normally will brief our Deputy Assistant Secretary, who in turn will brief the higher level officials. We have our EIL officials, our asset managers that we, within property management, provide one-on-one guidance. And then we have a IT asset management group, and they also provide guidance to users, borrowers, contractors.
This is Norman. I'll follow. So yes, absolutely. Effective communication requires us to understand and satisfy the information needs at every level of our organization. I typically divide the organization into 3 tiers. The first being what I call the operational tier. These are personnel that track core operational processes and would desire information related to current operations and effective monitoring of real-time data. Then the second tier would be the tactical tier, and these people are departmental heads, and they track departmental processes and projects, and their focus is on getting analysis of data that will impact their processes and projects. Then the final tier is a strategic tier. These are the people who are our corporate executives. They are focused on the execution of corporate strategic objectives at each level of the organization, and they desire information that has a strategic management focus versus a monitoring or analysis focus.
This is Stan. At Stanford, we have distributed users that we would communicate with that are the people that are most directly involved with the management of property for their local unit or department. Then we would also have other communications that would go to research administrators that are more involved perhaps with the financial elements. And then there are other lists for other more specialized groups, as well as blanket lists that cover staff and faculty as well.
This is Dan Tully at Northrop Grumman. We generally try for our colleagues to send out some personalized lists that directly relate to the individual, and generally that goes out like via email. And then and for some of those we actually have them automated, so it's kind of a canned templated correspondence, so to speak. But everybody knows what's expected when they get it, so they can react accordingly. Generally, when it comes to executives, though, it's more fine-tuned and more high-level, and usually there's more graphics involved, like charts or things that, and it's also related more to the overall objectives of the company and, risks, as well as profits, or where we can gain some sort of budgetary benefit, But so that's kind of how we differ between executives and our colleagues.
Thanks, Dan. Jessica, do we have any questions on the table before we move on to our next question?
We are good to move on. Thanks.
Thanks, Jessica.
Oh, Kim, I'm sorry. We do have a question.
Okay.
I think they were typing. So this question is for Patty.
Okay.
I also work in local law enforcement and understand communication with various levels of command. What are some, if any, of your challenges with communicating with these multiple levels of command? Do you ever receive conflicting rules?
Well, and if you work in local law enforcement, you know the same thing that I know, that we're bound by certain sets of guidelines that are put into place really by our legislature. So everything kind of has to funnel back towards that and what we're required by our state property accounting personnel. However, there are different levels of understanding of that as we go through this chain, and there is not really a completely across the board structure for how we approach different, like Highway Patrol is somewhat different than the Texas Rangers, that kind of thing. So who we approach and how we approach them can be a little bit tricky, and you kind of just have to start out generic with the basic level and find out who you really need to talk to have it organized, because it needs to be organized to have them come together and understanding, and we need to verify all their assets once a year. Basically, we have a list of controlled and capital assets, so that can be extremely challenging. Once you do it, it becomes a little bit easier, but the chain of command can be a little bit tricky to navigate. So sorry, I don't know if I answered any questions, but that's what we deal with.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Patty. So question 2 for the panel is, what communication strategies have you found to be successful, and then on the other hand, unsuccessful? How about Norman? Let's start with you.
Okay. I use 2 basic strategies. Strategy number 1, keep the communication concise. Keep it simple regardless of the level that you're communicating with, and keep it relevant. That means providing easy to understand real-time information on relevant key performance management parameters. My second strategy is that a picture is worth 1,000 words. And so whenever possible, I try to use some sort of graphical form to illustrate the point that I'm making.
Thanks, Norman. Let's see. How about Stan?
Primarily for communication strategies that have been successful have been the tailored email lists for specific audiences. And I have always found that big picture inclusion goes a long way. So when I'm communicating out to either to the entire group as to a new policy, a new procedure, or a change in some sort of process, I try to give them as much information about that change as possible, the why, the effect it has upstream, things of that nature. And then individually, when I'm communicating with someone, the same thing applies. If somebody asks me a question, I try to not only respond to the direct piece of information they're requesting, but I try to think of what other facets are affecting that, so that they may be asking what seems like a direct question, but in reality they're trying to find out something related. So I try to make sure that I include multiple facets of or angles of the situation that they're asking about. Unsuccessful strategies have been, as far as I've seen, postcards and flyers, posters, things of that nature. They become just so much background noise that people really stop paying attention. So I still rely on email blasts. I try to make sure I don't send them too often, or you end up just having people filter you to the garbage can. But as long as what you're saying to them is pertinent and important and carries some weight, they tend to actually read the emails and abide by the message being sent.
Thanks, Stan. Angela, let's move to you.
Okay, great. With our agency, majority of our individuals that are involved in property management, asset management responsibilities is a collateral duty for them. So it's important for our organization, property management, to train, educate, and try to encourage these individuals, because it is only, as they say, 10% of their duties. However, during the inventory time, it's 100%. So we give them as much information that we possibly can. We train them annually, and we encourage them to actually take classes through NPMA and possibly get certified, which creates a great atmosphere for learning, and it's something for them to add to their resume. Unsuccessful strategies, unfortunately, at times, because it is a collateral duty, these individuals are running into issues within their own organization. So we, property management, kind of come in, step in at a higher level and reinforce the policy and encourage their senior management to enforce it as well.
Thanks, Angela. Dan?
Hi. So I think that successful and unsuccessful is subjective, based on the individual. I think that to be successful, you need to vary your communication plan, strategy, and approach communication on many different levels. For instance, the emails are good, but the posters are not necessarily a bad idea. Just to have them in common areas and things of that nature. If there's a corporate newsletter that goes out, having something in there may help. Basically you want to spread the word in as many different avenues or conduits that you can get out, and hopefully something sticks. Because some people are just overwhelmed with email. So if you send them another email, it's just noise. Some people are overwhelmed with, internal and external, obstacles that, keep them from concentrating on any one thing. So you definitely need to have it, even if you in your cafeteria, if you have it like a TV monitor that, puts, news of, groups within your organization or whatever, you can include a property slide on there just to get people thinking about it or whatever. So I think that a successful plan is to have a variety of communication outlets, and an unsuccessful plan or unsuccessful strategy would be to just pick one and just go with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Patty?
Wow, yeah, amen to what everybody said. I think that everybody had some great input there. I probably on the top of my list would be to keep my communication relevant and concise so that people don't just dismiss what I have to say. We're often contacted, though, with questions, and I need to be careful when I even answer questions to keep it relevant and keep it concise so that they actually read what I say. Unsuccessful, boy, that's really hard to determine. I far prefer email over pretty much anything, because that way I can keep a record of a string of communication. We often have to communicate multiple times over a list of assets, or even sometimes one single asset. That's what the business that I am in is, taking care of the controlled and capital assets, seeing that they're verified and properly handled within our agency. We have more than 9,000 employees, and everybody's responsible for a minimum of one asset. So that's, and obviously some have a lot more. So sometimes you have to communicate at the very lowest level, the actual user, to try to get verification of it. Sometimes it has to go up their chain of command. So just to be very careful that I don't basically step on anybody's toes, but need to get my job done. So I think to keep it friendly, and I don't mean to make it sound like too casual, because it needs to be casual, professional friendly, if that makes any sense.
Yes, it does.
Thank you.
Jessica, do we have any questions from the floor before we move on to our third question?
Not at this time.
Okay, well, stop me if we do. All right, so moving on to our third question for the panel. What is the most important aspect of property/asset management to communicate, and why? Let's start with Stan.
Wow. This one's an interesting question because everything about property management is important. Just kidding. What we tend to focus on here and what we try to get across in our communication is our link to overall risk management. Property touches on so many different facets that we are involved in the compliance, managing risks of compliance or being out of compliance. We carry with us a lot of financial risk, as well as the lesser known but all important reputational risk. So when I am putting out directives regarding property, I try to put a little bit of linkage to this is why we are addressing this. Because we don't sit around in a back room and come up with torturous activities for the staff to have to perform. We're doing it for a specific purpose, and the purpose is almost always risk related, to minimize our risk, whether it's compliance, financial, or reputational, or other. So that's kind of what I try to get across to people whenever I'm communicating about property management.
Thanks, Dan. Norman?
Certainly. I like to focus on the benefits, be they operational benefits, tactical benefits, or strategic benefits. My experience has been that when people clearly understand the benefits to be derived from what they're doing, that knowledge acts as a motivational force to drive them to do the work to obtain those benefits.
Thanks, Norman. Patty?
Well, the most important aspect of our property management is that we need to be in compliance with the guidelines that are set before us, because there are lots of ramifications if we're not. But that's our full-time job. That's what we do. It's very difficult to make the 8,980 people understand that what we do is actually important. So without making ourselves sound like we're in control, because we're not, and but we have a job to do. So the most important aspect of what we do is to get people to realize that what we do is important. And that's easier said than done. And most people are pretty good about it, but you'll get some of them that they don't even understand what that reporting something is missing starts a whole string of events. Reporting a weapon as missing begins a whole string of events that goes into many other agencies. It doesn't just end with the person that can't find the shotgun. And our why is just because we want to stay basically under the radar, under the guidelines. We're given a maximum amount that we can be missing without having auditors come down on us. We have an agency guideline, and then also the state auditor's guideline. So our main goal is to stay underneath both of those and to assist our property custodians, our customers, to find everything that they're responsible for. Even though they're the ones that should know where it is, we're the ones that help them locate it.
Thanks, Patty. Dan, how about you?
From the contractor perspective, it's always about the money, right? So, communicating anything that for compliance related is probably the most important. because audifying costs money and corrective actions cost money. So, you know, keeping a healthy system is our number one ready for communications, and I guess I already answered the why. It's about the money. So if I didn't mention that before.
Thanks, Dan. Angela?
Accountability and internal controls. Pretty much staying ahead of your inventory. Do not wait until it's inventory time to certify and validate. If you have movement of your assets, document it, make sure the system is updated. Keep track and report items that you no longer can find early in the process. Do not wait till the inventory time to report something that has been missing for 6 months.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Jessica, do we have any other questions before we move on?
I do have a request for Norman. So first of all, Norman, a quick statement that was sent in was that your response was brilliant. So thank you for that. But they did request, could you please rephrase or restate the communication of benefits?
Rephrase, maybe perhaps give an example. So take, for example, you want to be compliant with your policies and procedures, but what's the benefit of that? It's going to help you to achieve a smooth and efficient and effective operation. So yes, you need to be in compliance, but understanding the benefit that comes from being in compliance, I'm suggesting that is going to be the driving motivational force. Because we all know we should be compliant, but what's the real big benefit to being compliant? So that was the gist of the point I was making. I hope I'm answering what the caller is looking for.
Thanks, Norman. We are clear on questions, Kim.
Thanks, Jessica. So moving on to question 4 for the panel, what advice would you give to someone who was just starting an awareness program? And I know from our poll, I believe it was about 25% of the call, if I remember that number correctly. So let's start with Patty.
Wow, you know, that's a really great question. When we started our awareness program, there was already a program in place that nobody was aware of. So basically, when we started getting out in our regions, in our different areas, we were tasked with making them aware of what all these guidelines and rules and regulations were. And it's nearly impossible to have that all memorized, so you kind of make sure that you have a bird's eye view, an overview of what, and I love what Norman said about giving it to them as a benefit. That's awesome. But I would tell them to kind of have in mind what your end goal is, and then what kind of steps would you make, and how would you get buy-in? That was a little bit challenging for us. We had to get people to buy into what we were doing. Even though this is something that's required, the accountability is required by the state, and always, well, I don't know always, but for a very, very long time has been. So many people were unaware of it. So I would just, in that kind of non-threatening way, make them aware of what your goal is, what you're tasked with, and then what your goal is, and how what you do can help them to achieve certain things. Like for us, what it was is they were all doing their own verification, and it was kind of a mess. So when we all came in, for the most part, they were very happy to give some of that over to us. They no longer had to write the memos. They no longer had to do certain aspects of their inventory. So that was kind of like showing them a benefit while teaching them about what our goals were, what we really had to accomplish.
Thanks, Patty. Dan, how about you in the contract world?
So I would say that if you're just starting out, the first thing you want to do is get your mindset right and be positive about the whole thing. Look at it as an opportunity and not so much as a chore. Remember the why, the who, what, when, why, and So for instance, who's your audience? Who are you targeting? Is it an executives? Is it your colleagues that you deal with on a regular basis in other departments or whatever? What are you trying to transmit or teach them? What are your takeaways? Try to be as clear and articulate as you can, and speak directly to those issues. Try not to make it too complicated. Keep it simple, as I think Norm said earlier. When is the best time to transmit the message? You don't want to do it on a Friday night, or as most of our in Northrop, a lot of our correspondence comes in at lunchtime, which I don't think anybody's sitting there reading their email at lunchtime. It's just, I don't know if that's the best time to send out correspondence, but that's when they normally do. Where will the message come from? Is it going to be email? Is it going to be the monitor in the cafeteria? Is it going to be a poster on the wall? Is it going to be something they leave on your desk? And then why? Remember why why is it important to the employee to receive that information? Keep it relevant, and that's pretty much it for starting an awareness program.
Thanks, Dan. Angela?
Yes, I would suggest that they would kind of get the buy-in of employees, because the users are very important. Get a consensus of what you want to do, how you want to do it, what your audience will be, how would you present it. Pair up with IT asset management, and maybe even get someone from the Office of Inspector there, kind of document success in the agency, and hopefully that can be mimicked throughout.
Thanks. Stan, what do they do in the university realm?
Well, when we try to do outreach, we try to pay attention to the various target audiences and tailor the granularity of the message to that audience. If we're reaching out with a new policy or procedure that really only affects the immediate property managers of each division, then we're going to, of course, provide a lot of granularity of detail. If we're trying to hit lab research staff, then we're going to use a much higher level of just sort of general awareness, kind of like, see that barcode tag? That matters. Please talk to people when you do something with that piece of equipment, and leave it at that, and give them the right contact info. Faculty, of course, really don't care at all about these little annoyances, so we try not to pepper them with anything, but we try to make sure that they know who we are and that we're here to help them. That's kind of important as well, is to make sure that you are giving people availability and a level of assistance. You really want to have them come to you with their questions or with their unusual scenarios or some of the things that they are unsure about how to proceed. Better to have them come and ask and get the correct direction right up front, rather than try to clean it up later. So we try to stress that a great deal here. And of course, clarity, clarity, clarity. You want to make sure that what you're communicating makes sense, that it is concise and, what's the word I want, digestible, so that people get what you're sending to them and understand the role that you play in their institution.
Thanks, Dan. Norman?
Okay. I typically use a 3-step approach to starting an awareness program. The first step is the who, identifying your target audience. For example, are you targeting asset user teams? Are you targeting middle management? Are you targeting senior management? And then use this to help determine the how and the what. And the how then is deciding on your delivery method. For example, are you going to use focus groups? Are you going to use advisory groups? Are you going to use open forums? And then the what is determining the type of information that you'd like to provide. Examples of this could be best practices, policy changes, or progress on key process enhancements.
Thanks, Norman. Those all sound like good tips for someone starting out on an awareness program from the panel. Jessica, do we have any questions from the floor?
We do. This question, I think, can go to basically any of our panelists. What actual tools do you use to create an asset management awareness in your organization? For example, I publish a weekly GFP tip of the week that consists of one PowerPoint slide focused on the specific topic, and it gets mailed out to a wide range of company stakeholders. So again, the question is, what actual tools do you use? And that's for anyone.
We use email and email lists for the different areas. Sometimes it's going to be for the upper management, sometimes it's going to be middle management, sometimes it's merely our team, sometimes it's for everybody, property custodians. We're restricted. We can't necessarily send things out to everybody across the state because pretty much not everybody would care at all, but even though everybody's involved. So yeah, email is definitely the preferred method that we use.
For Stanford, we also primarily use email because we can sort of tailor the target audience depending on what the message is. We have in the past tried posters and things of that nature in laboratories. The attempt there is to hit the people that we aren't going to catch with emails, because we aren't necessarily emailing grad students, other students, lab researchers. We're usually targeting administrators, management, and that sort of thing with the emails. So to get just a basic grasp of understanding that items with a barcode matter, that's when maybe just something as simple as a little poster or a card that's in bulletin board of laboratories can at least give a general awareness that prompts people to maybe ask a question before they go throwing something away.
This is Norman. So I'm with Deloitte. We typically have teams deployed at various client sites. And so within the team, in addition, of course, to email, which within the teams, we sometimes use a lunch and learn format where we will get everyone together, do a presentation. The nice thing about the lunch and learn is that you have a captive audience. Everyone is there focusing on what you are saying. They have the opportunity to ask clarifying questions to ensure that they fully understand and get the message. And so this is just another way in which the communication process can take place.
That's a very good point, as a matter of fact, Norman. Getting people together where you are actually in a person-to-person environment is really huge. We have a quarterly forum for all property administrators at Stanford, and we're fairly fortunate that around 50% or more show up to attend what's usually a 2-hour event. And at those quarterly forums, we roll out new procedures that might be coming up, or new policies, new applications that have been developed to assist them with their tasks. So these have been, we call them PACE meetings, Property Administration Continuing Education. And a lot of people really benefit a great deal from those because they are in person, they can ask questions, there's some back and forth dialogue between our team and the audience that of property administrators on campus. So person to person is really a great additional tool for communicating and getting outreach to those that are most directly involved.
That was a great question from the audience. Jessica, is there any others?
Not at this time. If anyone has any additional questions, please go ahead and raise your hand or type that in. But it seems that we are clear, Kim.
Okay. I wanted to, again, just open it up to the floor if there's any other questions, or from the panel, is there any other comments or things you'd like to let the audience know about awareness or the communication strategies you guys use?
So this is Dan Tully. I have one alibi. Kind of along the lines of what we were just discussing, we have, at Northrop Grumman, we have a Northrop Grumman Property Council, which is all of Northrop Grumman property related personnel. We have a monthly call-in, and then we have a meeting face-to-face at least twice a year. Now, obviously, the face-to-face meetings are somewhat smaller than the call-ins, because the call-in is easier for a lot of people. But the opportunity is there, right? And then we also have an annual training in certain parts of the sectors. So, you know, depending upon, it's basically sector driven. So some sectors have annual training, and some sectors, I think, just send out information, you know, via email or whatever. But usually it's like a course they take we use the Learning Exchange, or LX training. And then we also get the new hires when they come in with the same type of training. So we try to hopefully give everybody at least a basic understanding of property from the holistic approach, you know, and then there's opportunities for people to get more involved as they need to.
Thanks, Dan. Jessica, is there anyone else with their hands raised or questions coming in?
Nope, we seem to be all clear. I would like to remind everyone that if you missed taking notes on anything here, we will be posting this recording on the YouTube channel. So you can get to that link from NPMA's website, or just type in NPMA Asset Management on YouTube. So this will probably be posted early next week, as well as any of the other webinars that occurred this month if you happen to miss any of that other information. We do have a question. I guess this is probably for me. Will there be any panels or group webinars in the future? We don't have any others that are currently scheduled, although I think this format works well. And if everyone on the call agrees, you know, please feel free to share that information with us in the survey that pops up after this webinar closes. Let us know how you feel about the panel format and the content, and any other suggestions for topics you'd like to see in webinars in the future. We certainly take that feedback and use that as we're planning for webinars moving forward. So please do share that information with us. But I thought the panel discussion with everyone here was fantastic today. So thank you very much to all of our panelists.